What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. And we're back with the 1981 album Architecture and Morality, and we're back with the second straight tune with the primary name Joan of Arc, though this one has the parenthetical secondary title Maid of Orleans. So, it's interesting. I mean, the previous track was, as people talked about it, as, you know, in the comments below, that it was essentially what I was getting a sense of, the idea that it was a speculative fantasy about perhaps going back and changing what happened for Joan of Arc and maybe saving her from the fate that, actually awaited her in history. So, I don't know, maybe this is a follow-up to that, maybe this is, what would have happened in a different timeline, maybe it's a different fantasy, maybe it's a more historical look at the character, but ultimately it's not a subtitle I've heard. Now granted, I've never studied Joan of Arc in any meaningful sense, perhaps more so than the Wild Stallions, but not on any significant level. So if this is a title that she earned in life, then obviously it could be more historical than the previous song, but even then it could be playing off of an actual title and using it in, again, a more speculative or fantastic way. Fantastical, I should say. Nevertheless, I'm curious and wonder, just how it may connect to not only the previous track, but to the speculative fiction that we heard. So let's find out. This is Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. The tune is Joan of Arc, Maid of Orleans, and it's from the 1981 album Architecture and Morality. they should have played that music in the future scenes of Back, or not Back to the Future, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. What's the song they actually play? It's like Dancing in the Streets All Night. I forget the guy's name. But yeah, crazy. Like, you know, it sounds like it is a continuation of the previous track conceptually, but sonically I enjoyed that one even more. And that, like, again, it had that, you know, marching snare rhythm feel to it already, and then it did that crazy, like, percussive crescendo, which it then, you know, went to this next level percussively for the remainder of the track. It was really cool sonically. I don't know exactly what he's saying, but I did hear the line, like, if you had a heart, would you give it to someone like me? So it sounds like he's genuinely, you know, betwixt by her. I don't think that's actually the right word. But yeah, he's obsessed with her. He's, you know, trying to pursue a romantic or emotional connection. Though again, it's not clear to me whether, like, it's in a dream he's having, or whether it's just, you know, thinking about, like, oh, if I could go back in time and I could make contact with you, you know, would you give me your heart? So still not sure exactly, you know, the nature of this speculation. But yeah, sonically I really did enjoy that one. And, you know, I mentioned that, like, I don't remember if it was Sealand or one of the others, but I mentioned on one of the other previous tracks on the album that, like, man, this, like, it's so crazy, and it's really, like, expansive and experimental. And, you know, I was thinking, like, you know, if you're a label and you're an executive, like, oh, you know, synth pop tunes, you know, that now it's 81 and, you know, we want these, like, tight coordinated tracks, and then you get something like this, like, what do you even do with this? And I think I forget who it was, someone was commenting that, like, that's pretty much exactly what happened, that they expected them to give the label, like, a bunch of nice and tidy catchy synth pop tunes, and then they got this album and they were just like, you know, well, I don't even know what this is. So but I do absolutely love the creativity on this album. And it's interesting because, like, I remember growing up hearing about OMD, and, you know, I think my sister may have had a poster among other groups on her wall, but it was never, like, a group I heard. So, like, I, like, assumed it's like, okay, so If You Leave, like, that's what they sound like, because, again, that's probably the only one that I remembered hearing and, like, associating with that name. But man, over the course of now 3 albums, I've come to see how, like, you know, that's, like, one facet of their output. And ultimately, you know, I would not have believed the tunes I'm now hearing if you had, like, said, oh, this is, you know, OMD, like that group that, you know, your sister listened to along with Spandau and some other groups. So yeah, it's cool to go down these deep dives and to find out so much more about groups that I either knew a tiny bit or not at all, or in some cases, you know, like, oh, like Erasure is a good example, where I knew, like, a half dozen tunes well, and, you know, I was aware that one of the guys, you know, in that duo was part of Depeche Mode, which I had already become a big fan of. But even so, it's like I go through Erasure's catalog in a more detailed way, and it's like, holy smokes, I really didn't know anything. You know, I thought I knew a little bit about them, but I really didn't. So I'm appreciating all these journeys, and once again, big shout out to all the folks sharing with the channel, including Philip, who shared the albums of OMD after Han Solo had shared the Greatest Hits compilation. So bottom line, and Seb as well. Again, so many people have shared music with me. I feel like these days I'm always, like, forgetting somebody, so I do apologize, but I do appreciate all the people who are champions of the channel. Luca does as well, even though she's too sleepy to say it verbally, but she and I will see you next time. Peace.